now, you're tuned into RBLR, the home of Tampa Bay's RBLR Sports.
Hi, everybody, and welcome to RBLR Sports Rays. We are the Rays podcast of RBLR Sports. If you didn't know that, you probably already know because you've probably listened before at this point. And RBLR Sports, like we talked about a couple weeks ago, is an acronym, so that's exciting, and we've got some exciting Rays content to go over today. With me here is Zach. How's it going, Zach?
Hey, pretty good, Ben. How are you doing today, man?
I'm good, thanks. Eureka's also in the background listening from Colorado, so he's on mute, ready to catch us if we do anything wrong. So always nice to have him watching over us. So we'll get into our couple headlines here from the week. So I mean, these might not be like headlines that everybody agrees with, but I really felt like the umpires gave away that final game in Detroit. The Rays didn't play great, but they also didn't deserve to lose. And then we also have we lost the series in Toronto, but I really see that as a result of like resting players and managing workloads. And then the last big thing from this week was that really cool Phillips walk-off home run that I'm sure we'll talk about a lot. So some good stuff this week. Any big standout things for you this week, Zach?
I think the main thing you touched on was the Toronto series. I also attributed it to a lot of resting players, but Toronto also came into it hot. I mean, they were in second place in the division at the time, so that was probably the biggest thing for me, was dropping 2 or 3 to them.
Yeah, they're a pretty hot team too, and you know, we saw 2 of their better pitchers in Robbie Ray and then Alek Manoah. Even Jose Barrios has been pretty good, but the Rays got to him, so it was a good series. That was entertaining for sure.
Oh, definitely.
All right, so we'll get into our game-by-game recap here. So the first game we're going to talk about here is the one from Saturday last week in Detroit, where we had Chris Archer versus, I think, Casey Mize, I want to say his name was. Yep. I don't know. I just have last names here.
Yeah, so it was Chris Archer, Casey Mize. Chris Archer came in and did exactly what he needed to do. 4 innings, 2 hits, 1 run. Big thing for us was mostly a small ball game, but we had Kiermaier with a double, Lowe with a double, and Kiermaier and Wendell both had triples, so our bats kind of came alive, not necessarily power-wise, but just making good, solid contact in that game.
Yeah, definitely. I really thought Lau and Wendell and KK all had some really good at-bats, and they made solid contact, like you said. I have Lau here with a 404 expected batting average in that game. Wendell had a 657 expected batting average, which was crazy. And then KK had a 545 expected batting average with an average exit velocity of 101.3. So he was really just hitting the ball hard, as were a couple other players. Archer did leave the game with that hip discomfort, but I thought his changeup looked really good. He had his highest swing and miss percentage on the season with that at 40%. And Casey Mize, though, he looked great too. His command wasn't great, but he still had some good stuff, and the Rays just hit the ball hard. So I think the Rays did a pretty nice job in that game. And then we had Enns coming in and kind of filling in and doing a great job there too. So I honestly don't remember if the Rays won that game, but I feel like they did based on like the overall positive tone in my notes here.
Yeah, we won 7-2.
Okay, that makes sense. Awesome. Because usually I have like something about like, oh, why didn't this player do something or whatever? But no, it looks like we won, so that's good. Always nice to win those.
It's always nice to see Enns come in, and he was phenomenal this week. I have no complaints about him, but he's been one of the surprises for me as of late.
Yeah, he's been pretty great, and I don't have this updated, but after that game on this past Saturday, he had a 1.72 FIP in his 16 innings of work up through that game this season. So he was really just mowing down lineups, and I thought he looked great. So pretty cool to see him doing that. His stuff was good, but I think it's mostly his velocity and sequencing. Like it was up a little bit, like a mile an hour more than usual. And he works really well with both catchers. So I like his stuff a lot.
Yeah, I agree.
All right, so the next game we got is the one on Sunday, the past Sunday, Luis Patino against Tarek Skubal. I don't know the first name super well. I just know he's a good pitcher. So what do you think of that game on Sunday there?
I think it was another great game not great, but another really solid game by Patino. Four and a third pitched, only gave up 5 hits. One of them was a home run, so obviously I'd like to not see that. What was weird for me, though, is that he only struck out 3 batters. And with Patino, I know he's a bit more of a cocky younger kid, and I am all for it, but that kind of surprised me. There was only 3 strikeouts. But yeah, it kind of, like you said, going up against Skubal, who I expected it to be a little bit more of a dogfight, and it ended up being towards the end of the game. That was exactly what it was. But 3 innings pitched, and he struck out 6 of our guys, so he was solid.
Yeah, I'm kind of glad him and Mize are both on like innings limits right now because they were both really good. And I know Mize was pretty good last night too, and I'm sure we'll get to that. But the Tigers are just trying to keep their young arms healthy, so they didn't go as long as they normally would have. But I didn't think Patino was great. I mean, he had a 6.86 expected FIP in the game, which is like a small sample size, but he got some pretty decent luck. Like the hard hit balls were right at defenders, so. I'm still a little concerned about him, and I do have some more stuff about his performance later on when we get to his game from last night. But I still liked the offense, though. I thought Wendell just continued to hit the ball well. He had a .413 expected batting average that game. The only problem is the extra innings rule there, because the Rays as the away team, like you can't just play for 1 run. So I know everybody, everybody on Twitter at least wanted them to like bunt the runner over and then try to get him in with like a sac fly or a ground ball or something. But if you play for the 1 run, then you're just setting yourself up to only score 1 run. And the home team is most likely going to score in their inning just because having the runner on second makes it pretty easy. So you got to play for the 2 runs. And that's what they did. And unfortunately, they just didn't get the win there. Kittredge seemed a little overworked. His spin had been pretty down, like over like almost 200 rotations per minute on his pitches. So I hate to see him, get overworked, but I know they need him in some situations. So hopefully they just rest him a little bit more before October, honestly.
Yeah, and I could see it happening because, like we talked about with Enns and some of our other bullpen guys, they're performing good enough to where maybe give Kittredge a couple days off, let him rest up, and don't overwork him, because if he's kind of one of our, in my opinion, he's one of our most integral bullpen arms. Oh
yeah, definitely. Like I think he's been like the MVP of the bullpen. Like he's come in so many situations. He's stayed healthy all year. He's performed really great. I don't have his stats in front of me, but I know he's been like a top 20, top 15 relief pitcher in the game this year. So he's been great, and I just hope he's staying healthy. I know in one of his other outings this week, he looked a little bit more back to normal, which was good. So it seems like they're going to probably try to get him some more regular rest as they close up the season, because honestly, the Rays they're not going to miss the playoffs at this point. They're barring some pending some like major collapse. Like I can't imagine a world where they miss the playoffs.
Yeah, no, I think we're one of 2. So there's 4 teams in the MLB that are above 90 wins, and we're one of the 2 that haven't locked up a playoff spot yet. So I don't.
Jeez.
Like you said, I don't see us not making the playoffs.
Right. Yeah. I think the division, it might be like a little bit in question if they can't go at least 500 over these last couple of weeks. But even then, I still feel like the division is just about locked up. And I think the earliest they can clinch is on Monday. So that might be cool if everything starts going their way today and tomorrow. So I guess we'll see.
I got faith in it.
Yeah, definitely.
Claiming it right now. We're locking up playoffs on Monday.
All right, that's the official RBLR Rays Sports stance on this. Is the Rays are going to make the playoffs on Monday. I 100% agree. I would like to be at the game that they clinch, so maybe. Well, I guess I probably won't be able to go this week anyways. But oh well. Anything else on that game from Sunday before we move on to the next game?
No, I think that's pretty solid. Aside from the Cruz and Phillips home runs, you gotta love seeing both of them hit home runs. But aside from that, no, I think that pretty much goes over the game.
All right, nice. So then we'll move on to the next game. That's the first one against Toronto. We had Colin McHugh starting against Alek Manoah. What'd you think of that game there?
I think that I hate Alek Manoah.
He's so good.
He is ridiculous. I feel that the 3.39 ERA is a little high for him on the season. Like, from watching him on the 13th, that does not look like a pitcher who should even have a 3.39 ERA. But then we get into our side of the ball. Colin McHugh was solid. He wasn't great. Not bad, though. And then Ryan Yarbrough, very disappointing, to say the least.
Yeah.
Felt like he just could not get his pitches where he wanted them. And Toronto was all over it.
Yeah, they were just sitting on like sinker and cutter the entire game. So I don't really understand his game plan there. He did not look good. The command was not good. I was going to say it's okay, but it really wasn't. It was pretty subpar. And he just didn't really throw his curveball, even though that's been his best pitch this season, like statistically based on like the weighted on-base percentage. And it's been the 15th best curveball in all of baseball. And he threw 4 of them in that entire start, or in that entire outing. So I don't really understand why he didn't throw the curveball more. I know he typically likes to throw the sinker more to right-handed batters, but he's been throwing the curve to both sides of the plate. So maybe he's just trying not to like show too much for teams that might be like scouting for the playoffs. I don't know. But that was really weird to like go from throwing your curveball more than you've ever thrown it in your entire life to only throwing 4 in a start where like if he threw his curveball more, he probably would have been better. So I know the Rays are, they're way smarter than me and they have a plan for everything, but I'm just trying to figure out why he wouldn't throw that curve. But anyways, like you said earlier, the Blue Jays have just been a really good team. Their offense is crazy, and the Rays probably weren't going to win that game anyways, only getting 2 hits. But I did like McHugh. He was all right. Conley looked pretty good, and Anderson looked about the same as Yarbrough to me. They just both did not look very good, but for different reasons.
Yeah, Anderson's stat line looks a little bit better, but aside from, obviously he only pitched 1 inning, but I agree with you, both of them just looked off. It wasn't what we're used to with Yarbrough and Anderson.
I really hope Anderson can like rediscover his velocity. It looks like it's been getting built back up a little bit. I know in his like minor league rehab outings, he was slowly getting the velo back up from like 91, I think it started out at. And now he's touching like 93, 94, which is good considering it's been like a month of, getting his arm built back up. But what's more concerning is he doesn't have that rise on his fastball like he did last year. So it doesn't really like look that different to hitters compared to the curveball. I mean, it looks different compared to the curveball. So like the curve and the fastball don't have that same separation as they did last season. And he's a 2-pitch pitcher, which is fine as a reliever, but he needs to find that rise again. So hopefully, maybe Fairbanks can give him a couple inches of rise because he's been on a tear lately with that. I don't really know what he's doing with his grip or whatever, but that ball is just sailing up every time it appears to sail up whenever it leaves his hands. So he's been pretty effective with that, but I hope Anderson can get his stuff back to normal.
Yeah, you're exactly right. His fastball just looked flat to me.
Yeah, anybody can really see it with the eye test too. Like you don't have to really go on like Savant and like look at the numbers. Like his fastball, if you just look at like a clip from last year and then look at one from this year, it's night and day. It's crazy, but
okay.
He has been improving the velocity, so I think maybe the rise might come next, but I guess we'll see. Anything else from that Monday game?
Just got to bring up the home runs again. Meadows got one.
Oh, right.
It's been a little bit for him, but I mean, he came in and right off of Richards, who, if I'm not mistaken, he played for us last year. We got him in the Nick Anderson trade. So glad to see that.
Yeah, he came over with Nick Anderson, and then he left with Willie Adames to Milwaukee this season. And then the Blue Jays, for whatever reason, I don't understand it. They got rid of Rowdy Tellez. I thought he was one of their better hitters. I know he doesn't really have a defensive home because he is really bad with the glove, but his left-handed bat's pretty nice. So I think the Brewers got a really good pickup in him. But I don't really think Trevor Richards is that great, so I don't know what the Blue Jays were doing there, but maybe they have a plan. I don't know though. He's
I hope they don't.
Okay. I hope they don't either.
They don't have a plan.
It seems like their plan is just like have their starters pitch as many innings as possible because their bullpen's bad, and just hope the offense continues to stay hot because they need everybody to continue to be at like 110% if they even want to like make the wild card. So I think the Rays are in a good spot, like being able to rest guys. And then they were even able to like scratch out a win there in the next game when it was Rasmussen against Barrios. So how'd you like Rasmussen that game, or Barrios too, either one?
Well, I honestly liked them both.
Yeah, they were good.
I hate to give Toronto credit, but the Barrios pickup at the trade deadline, I think, is, if they make the wild card and get into the playoffs, make a run in the playoffs, I think that's one of the main acquisitions that they made that's going to help them do that. He's a phenomenal pitcher. But and then to go over Rasmussen, I know I've been talking about him a lot the last 2 weeks. Obviously not last week, but the 2 weeks before that. I think he's proving himself more and more. He went 5 innings, only gave up 2 hits. So both of them just phenomenal performances for me.
Yeah, Rasmussen continues to get results, and I know I've been like kind of scared with his, expected metrics and stuff because he really is overperforming a lot, but honestly, the Rays can just keep riding that overperformance as long as they can because like at the end of the day, they're still winning games, and that's what's going to matter in the playoffs. So I like Rasmussen. His ERA has since becoming a starter is 1.33, but his expected FIP is 4.04, and that's one of the biggest differences in all of baseball, if not the biggest difference between expected FIP and ERA. So he's walking a tightrope like every single game, but he's making it work. So, I'll take it. We'll take the wins. He's, been shutting down really good lineups. So I love it. I hope he continues to do it. It makes me a little nervous, but I don't see why he won't continue that because he has that track record of overperforming, and some guys are just built like that. So hopefully he does it, and he does it in October too.
Yeah, exactly, and technically, I mean, it's only overperforming if he falls off. So,
right,
like if he just keeps this up, then next year we'll be talking. Oh, maybe Rasmussen's going to be our number 3 starter. So.
Right. No, that's true. And
it could be a crazy thing.
And I know this was how like Tyler Glasnow was as he was like transitioning from his bullpen role to becoming a starter with the Rays when he, came over from Pittsburgh. So this could be like a similar situation. I mean, Glasnow obviously has like much better stuff, and then he added in the slider this year to make himself elite. But Rasmussen might do that. I don't know. I mean, he's got a really good fastball and he's got a really good slider. If he could just get like an okay third pitch, he's going to be one of the better pitchers in the American League, maybe even all of baseball. So he was great. Barrios was really good too, but the Rays got it done. I think that was a 2-0 shutout win, if I'm not mistaken.
Yes, sir.
So that was pretty cool. And my other big thing from this game was that Brandon Lau hit a home run off Tim Maiza, and that was the first home run he's allowed to a left-handed batter this season, and it's the first one since like August of 2019 that he's allowed to a lefty. So it's been a long time since. It's crazy. And then of course Lau just like hits one off of him, and Maiza has been the 5th best reliever in all of baseball since June 1st. So he's really not just on like a little hot streak or anything. He's been really good, and he's been consistently good. So it was really cool to see Lau get that done. I mean, it was like an insurance run, so it was kind of like not the most important home run, but I thought it was really important for Lau to continue to get a little bit better against lefties. So good for him.
Yeah, exactly. And then not only Lau, but to get Choi back on the scorecard. We got with a double and a home run in the game. It was nice to see that.
Yeah, it looks like he's pretty healthy now. I know he had that hamstring stuff going on earlier, so he was off and on the IL a couple times, but he looks to be like close to 100%, if not at 100%. So I like the way they got him back from that hamstring injury. So hopefully, they're going to get some similar good luck with Wander Franco in the next couple days here, maybe like a week or so.
I hope so.
But anyways, we'll go on to that next game. We got Michael Wacha against Robbie Ray. Going into this game, these were the two of the top 5 pitchers in expected FIP for like the past month. So I thought it was going to be a pitcher's duel, but Wacha just did not look great. He wasn't terrible, but it was not the pitcher's duel I thought it would be. That's for sure.
Yeah, no, Eureka and I were talking about it before you joined in on the call, and we decided that we're just going to start hating on Michael Wacha again, because when we hate on him, he performs amazingly. So I think that's going to be my stance from now on.
All right. Well, that means I need you guys to start talking about like me not winning the lottery, because then if you hate on me to not win the lottery, then maybe I will. That'll help me out. But yeah, Wacha just wasn't great. It wasn't his best start, but I think it was mostly his fastball command that looked off. I was looking at like the Illustrator thing on Savant for his pitch tracking, and it was all pretty much like either high above the zone where he wants it, or it was like middle in, and that's not where he wants the fastball. So it wasn't terrible, but definitely not great. Ever since he dropped the cutter, though, like he's almost gotten rid of it completely. He's been one of the better pitchers in baseball. It's from August 20th on. He's at a 2.74 expected FIP, which is the ninth best, or no, is the seventh best, tied for seventh best starter in all of baseball, just a bit ahead of Blake Snell. I mean, I don't know if anybody for the Rays has been paying a lot of attention to him, but he's been one of the hottest pitchers in the league recently. So it's pretty cool to see Wacha, outperforming Snell right now. And really, it was just Vlad Guerrero Jr. and Bichette that kind of like beat the Rays. Like Bichette drove in 5 runs. Guerrero Jr. had 2 hits. I think he had 2 doubles. So it's, if you lose to 2 guys in that good of a lineup, that's just whatever, you tip your hat and a good game. But the Blue Jays are a hot team, so it's pretty cool to see them kind of help us bury Boston and New York. But I don't know if I'd want to face them in the playoffs, honestly.
No, not at all. They're out of the 3 teams, as wild as it sounds, I'm more intimidated for the Rays by Toronto than I am by Boston or New York.
Yeah, I because I know that the Rays can beat Boston and New York, but this Blue Jays team, like, they're really good. I know it's going to be a good test when they play them here in the next week, but they've gotten so much better since the deadline, and the Rays haven't had to see them much. So I don't really want to play the Blue Jays, but I guess if you had to rank like out of New York, Boston, Toronto, Oakland, and Seattle, which team would you want to face the most in the first series of the playoffs?
Oh, I would say either Boston, because of their pitching. Aside from Chris Sale, their pitching has not been very good, recently anyway. And then probably Oakland. Yeah. I don't want to go anywhere near Seattle, ever, ever.
Right.
And like I said, Toronto, that lineup is just a potent lineup, and they're all so young that when you put them behind a pitcher like Robbie Ray who can strike out 13, like that's ridiculous.
Yeah, I would definitely not want to face Toronto at all. I'm hoping maybe like Cleveland could do something to make like a really late wild card push and then somehow get in and just give the Rays like a nice easy 4-game sweep or something. But I think it's going to end up being either like Toronto or New York that the Rays play. So I'd much rather play like Boston or Oakland, but I think it might end up being like New York, Toronto, maybe Seattle. New York's been a little bit better in the second half, so I don't know if I'd want to play them, but I still think the Rays could win pretty much any series against those teams, but I think a Toronto series would be pretty tough for sure.
Yeah, I agree. I think Toronto, as much as I as much as Seattle intimidates me, I think the number one team I don't want to play is Toronto, especially not in a 7-game series.
Yeah, for sure. I don't know how long their pitching is going to hold up because they've been rolling out their starters like every 5th day since like March. So it would be pretty interesting to see if they could keep that going through October. But it looks like they're going to be able to do it. So yeah, I don't really want to play them. They're pretty good. So any other thoughts on that Blue Jays series as we move on to the next series here?
No, sir. I'm ready for Detroit again.
All right. Well, I think the Rays were too because they came out a little bit better than they did when they were in Detroit, so that was pretty good. 2 days ago, so on, what was that, Thursday, we had Tyler Alexander. I think the Rays saw him a little bit in Detroit against Dietrich Enns. I know Head opened the game, but Enns was like the featured guy that arm. So what did you think of that game against Detroit?
I think that Enns, again, was phenomenal. That's his second win of the week, if I'm not mistaken.
Mm-hmm.
His first 2 wins of the season, and both in the same week. All in all, I think our pitching was really good all around. Charcois comes in and gives up a home run, but aside from that, it was kind of one of those insurance runs that Lau hit in the Toronto's or in the other Detroit series. But
right.
Still felt nice to see Enns come out and, in my opinion, overperform what everyone expected him to do when we signed him.
Oh yeah, definitely. I mean, and if you even consider like how he performed against Boston that one game where the Rays gave up like 20 runs or whatever, he looked like he did not belong on a major league roster like at all. But he's really bounced back since then. Like he's been a really solid option, and he's honestly starting to make his case for being included on the playoff roster. So
agreed.
Yeah, they're gonna need some balance, like with left-handed pitchers, and with Ryan Yarbrough not being super great lately. Enns might be able to get on the roster somehow. I don't know if he would take Yarbrough's spot completely. Maybe he would just take over like Conley's spot. But it's interesting that he's he's putting himself in the mix. So congrats to him. He's looked pretty good. So I'm excited to see what he's going to do later on.
Yeah, and then when we get Zunino and Diaz both hitting home runs, it's going to be a good day.
Oh yeah,
that's kind of
home. Yeah.
That's where I'm at with it for sure, because it was, I haven't seen Diaz. He's only hit 11 this year, which is decent, but man, it was nice to see.
Yeah, and most of those have come in the second half, so he's starting to get his launch angle, which is cool. He's starting to pull the ball more, and that was a really cool looking home run too. Like he hit the ball really hard. I think it was like 112 off the bat, so just on a line like to one of the deepest parts of the park. So good for him. Love to see that. Fireisen looked a little bit better. His stuff is starting to get back to normal since coming back from the IL. Actually, really since like the sticky stuff crackdown, he's been a little shaky. But his rise looked really good. It had 2 more inches of rise than usual, so a good separation between the slider and fastball. Or it might have been changeup fastball that game. I don't really remember it, but I think it was slider.
I'm pretty sure it was slider.
Okay, because I know his changeup has been good, but he's starting to go away from that for some reason, so maybe the Rays like his slider more. Fairbanks was getting better too. His command was a little off, but again, he averaged 99 miles an hour on his fastball. He hit 100 once, and he had 4 more inches of rise than usual, which is like insane because that's like 2 barrels of a bat. Like almost 2 barrels of a bat you could miss with that much rise. So it's pretty significant, and I hope he can continue that, and maybe he can share some of it with Nick Anderson, because the rise is almost as important as velocity, because when the hitter thinks it's going to be in one spot but it ends up like higher than it does, it makes the velo play up. So that 99 was probably looking like 102, 103 to some of the hitters.
Yeah, that makes it almost impossible.
Right. I mean, that's what makes Aroldis Chapman so effective, is he throws triple digits and he has some of the best rise in the game. So I know his command is usually kind of all over the place, but when he's locked in, he's really good. So it looks like the Rays might have a right-handed version of that in Fairbanks, because his command is also hit or miss sometimes.
That would be nice. I'd be okay with a version of Aroldis Chapman.
just a more like a more ethical version. So
agreed.
Yeah.
Agreed, definitely.
Just like a Aroldis Chapman, but like a good person. So even though Fairbanks looks like he could be kind of crazy with those eyes, but I've seen him like talk on, I think he does a podcast with someone on the Rays, or he's on a podcast. I don't know. But he's a really like well-spoken, seems like a nice guy. So like him a lot. And I think that's about it for this game. I know you talked about Chargois. The home run he gave up was pretty good hitting, but he still had a .95 expected FIP in that outing. So I thought his stuff was starting to look better. So I'm really liking that all these relievers are starting to get into a groove as we approach October.
Exactly. It's the perfect time for them to find the groove.
So hopefully the bats can do that as well. And we saw that a bit last night. They got back into the Papa John's 50% off territory against Casey Mize and Luis Patino facing off. So what did you think of that game from yesterday on Friday?
Another solid game for Tampa. And again, give credit where credit's due. Casey Mize did not play terrible. Or did not pitch terrible. I mean, he only threw 3 innings, but like you had alluded to earlier, he's on the pitch count. They're trying to keep his pitches down. So 3 innings, 3 hits, only gave up 1 earned run. I mean, that's not the worst I've seen. And then we get Patino out, and another one of those not great performances, but not bad. 6 innings, 4 earned runs, only 1 home run. So he looked a little bit better, in my opinion, than he did the previous game we saw him this week.
Yeah, definitely.
Not to the standard that he has been performing previously.
Yeah, he's been on a bit of a rough stretch, and I'll have more on him later on after we talk about the rest of this game. But he settled in a little bit after the 3rd inning, which was cool. And he did end up going 6 innings, only throwing 80 pitches. So that was pretty nice to be efficient like that. But he gave up 9 hard hit balls in those 6 innings. And the average exit velo, I think, was close to like 96, 97. So he was getting hit around pretty hard, even if the balls, in addition to his hard hit balls, like the softer contact was still pretty hard. I don't really know what the plan is here with Patino, because he's still a 2-pitch pitcher, and we've seen that not be effective really. I have some numbers on it later, but I think the only thing that makes sense to me is he might have a changeup that's ready to go, but the Rays won't let him throw it yet because they don't want other teams to like see it. Maybe, I don't know. I don't fully understand the plan here, but I'm sure the Rays have a plan. I just don't get it yet. Because he's been floundering a bit in the majors since getting recalled. I liked Anderson a bit more. His velocity is down, but his stuff looked a little bit sharper. He only threw 1 curveball, but he was getting his fastball where he wanted it, and the rise was a little bit better than last time. It's still not what it used to be, but it's getting better. I think he just needs more reps. So I really like that Anderson is steadily improving. David Robertson continues to look so good. I love this signing. I think he's going to be really valuable in October. He's got like the experience. He is an Olympic medalist now, so he's got that under his belt. He's done just about everything, and I think he's going to help carry this Rays bullpen to the next level, because he just goes out there, executes whatever situation he's in, and he does well. And honestly, I think he's similar to Kittredge in his value, because they just come in, do their job, and they don't really mess around. And we saw Kittredge yesterday too. He gets 4 misses on 4 swings against the sinker, and he was great in that 10th inning. Like, he did exactly what he had to do. So really, really liked the bullpen this game.
Yeah, no, I agree with you 100%. The bullpen came through for us and did exactly what they needed to. And the score, I mean, even though it was 7-4, it looks a little more bloated than it really was, with Phillips hitting the 3-run walk-off home run. So it was, in my opinion, was much closer than the score says it was.
Yeah, Detroit's another one of those teams where like they're below 500 and they're not good, but they're not like Baltimore, they're not like Kansas City, they're not
Arizona
Cleveland.
Bad.
Yeah, they're like, they've got pieces. Like, their offense is still pretty okay. Their starting pitching is pretty decent, but their bullpen has been, as we've seen, a little shaky. So I know they have a good manager in AJ Hinch, even though he's got a bit of an asterisk next to his name. But they could be a good team in the near future. They've got some pieces coming up, including Austin Meadows' brother is one of their higher rated prospects. So that's pretty cool. I'm sure we'll get to see him in the next year or so, maybe.
I did not know that.
Yeah, I think it's like Parker Meadows or something. But yeah, he's pretty good. I think he's similar to Austin, but I think he's a righty, and they're just pull happy hitters who hit the ball hard. So, oh yeah, and Austin Meadows got his 100th RBI. So I know RBI is kind of like a team stat, but it's cool to see a Rays player do that because it doesn't happen very often.
Yeah, it doesn't happen very often at all, and that was one of the things I was going to bring up was that it was cool to see Meadows who has been kind of injured and finally, now that he's on Tampa, just performing the way that he was supposed to in Pittsburgh, and he's just one of my favorite players, right underneath Phillips.
Yeah,
but to see him come out and hit his 100th RBI was nice.
I mean, it hasn't really happened since 2018, 2017 with Longoria, maybe?
I was going to say 17 or 18.
Wow,
and
so
Longoria
it's been a while.
would be my guess.
Yeah, it would have to be. And I know Pena did it before Longoria or maybe at the same time back in 2012. Maybe both of them did it. But it's cool to see a run-producing player be on the team because, they don't really have that. They usually kind of rely on a bunch of... I mean, they still rely on a whole team approach, but, Meadows has been really good in RBI situations. So, we'll take it. I like it. So speaking of individual performances, any guys stood out to you this week that you want to mention?
I have to mention my man, Brett Phillips.
Yeah, definitely.
I know it wasn't his numbers weren't amazing, but if I'm not mistaken, he had 3 hits this week and all 3 of them were home runs.
Yes.
Or something along those lines anyway, and it just
that's
for
correct.
Me, on offense, he's going to be my player of the game or my player of the week. And then pitching wise, I'm going to go with Dietrich Enns because, he pitched phenomenally.
No, he was really great. And I also had Phillips too as a player of the week. He, like you said, he had 3 hits this week, all of them home runs. So he had a 0 batting average on balls in play, a 200 batting average overall, but he had a 184 weighted runs created plus this week, which was the best on the team by quite a bit. I think Choi was the next closest around the 130s or 140s range, but Phillips was phenomenal. And he has been the 7th best hitter against left-handed pitching in all of baseball in the second half of the season. So I know there's a couple caveats in there, but he's really been just one of the most productive hitters from the left side of the plate. So I like him a lot. He's got a 145 weighted runs created plus overall on the season, which is good enough for 25th best in all of baseball. So he's been a really, really valuable player for them. So and he plays great defense too. I forgot to mention that, but he's among the league leaders in outs above average. So he's definitely one of the valuable players on this team, and he's going to play a big role in the postseason. For my pitcher, I had David Robertson. He only had 3 innings pitched this week across 3 appearances, and he did give up a couple of runs, but he had 5 strikeouts in those 3 innings. He had a 556 batting average on balls in play and 2 earned runs. So it's really just, bad luck with him. But he was the best reliever this week in all of baseball based on expected FIP. He had a 0.42 expected FIP. And like I said, that was the best in all of baseball. So he really performed well. And I said it last week, but I think he's going to be super valuable in the postseason, just given his experience and, the stuff he does on the mound. It's really great to see.
Yeah, he's definitely one of our more experienced arms in the bullpen. And especially with playoff experience, if I'm not mistaken, most of our guys last year was probably their first actual deep playoff run. Right, yeah.
I mean, it's just, like you said, Fairbanks is one that has experience now. Kittredge has experience. McClanahan a little bit, but it like you said, it all came pretty much last season. So hopefully he'll be able to help, share some of his knowledge with the other guys, which I'm sure he will. It's the same thing with like Nelson Cruz. Like he's definitely been a big influence on this team. They've been one of the better. I think they've been the best offense in the league since he's been acquired. So I think Robertson can do the same for the bullpen. I also had a bit of a not so great standout performance from the week, and that was Luis Patino. I don't want to like hate on a player. I'm just trying to figure out like why, and I don't mean this in a mean way, but like why is he still on the team? I know Archer's hurt, which probably has something to do with it, but he had a 5.43 expected FIP across his 2 starts this week and a 273 batting average on balls in play. I know both starts were against Detroit, but he's not getting hit because of bad luck like we've seen with some other guys. He's getting hit because he is not playing well, and he's been the worst pitcher in baseball this past week based on expected FIP, and it wasn't really close. Like the next closest was around like a 5 expected FIP, so he's not doing so great. And since being called up on July 22nd, he has had a 5.34 expected FIP with actually the same batting average on balls in play, so a 273. So that has statistically been the worst line in all of baseball among all starters since July 22nd. So we have a guy who's been one of the worst pitchers in the league, and I'm not 100% sure why he's still here. I know Honeywell is still getting stretched out, and I noticed that since July 21st, so like the day before Patino was called up, they started stretching out Honeywell at the same time, so that's kind of interesting. And he's at a 3.83 FIP. We don't have expected FIP for minor league baseball, but he's been pretty great as a starter, and it looks like he's ready. I know Archer's not healthy, so I know this has just been like me rambling here, but I'm trying to figure out why Patino is on the roster, and if he's going to be on the playoff roster.
Yeah, I mean, I don't necessarily disagree with you though. My debate to that would be though that if you look at who we had pitched this week, in all honesty, Patino's the only legitimate starter.
Right.
Well, the only person that came in as a starter. I mean, Michael Wacha has been a starter, but Luis Patino is the only starter that we actually had play this week.
Yeah, he has pitched like a lot of, like he's been, getting a lot of innings, which is good. I just don't see him developing with those innings because there's no third pitch that we've seen. So I think maybe the Rays have a third pitch, like maybe he has a changeup that's ready, but they're not showing it until the playoffs. It seems like that would be like a Rays thing to do, but I don't really understand. Like because I know the Rays have a plan, so it's like it's hard for me to wrap my head around like why he isn't in Durham right now and why Honeywell wouldn't be on the roster, because Honeywell is just as good. He doesn't have the same upside because Patino does have like that 98 mile an hour fastball, and he's really good against righties, but he has not been good against lefties ever. He hasn't even been like league average against lefties. He's just been like, it's been like a batting practice when he's up against a lefty. So again, I know he's a big part of this team's future, and I'm not saying he's like, washed up. He's, 21 years old. He's got plenty of time to develop, but for now, I'm just, I don't really know why Honeywell wouldn't be called up. Maybe we'll see that this week. Who knows? I know some people have wanted to see Shane Baz on the roster, but he, barring some like special petition that the Rays would have to put out to Major League Baseball, he will not be allowed to be on the playoff roster because he wasn't on the regular season roster until, or he had to be on the regular season roster, the 40-man. No, not the 40-man, the 25-man before September 1st. So he wasn't added, so he can't be on the playoff roster unless they do some like special magical rule exception. I don't know. But yeah, we got a little note that we should mention Baz. So thank you, Eureka, for keeping us on track about that. I appreciate it. So basically, this is my long-winded way of setting up this question. Who would you rather keep on the playoff, or who would you rather take on the playoff roster? Luis Patino with his upside, or Honeywell with his, what you're getting with Honeywell with his floor?
At this point right now, I would say Honeywell. Because the upside will still be upside next season.
Right, that's true.
Whether we win the World Series or not, that upside will still be there next season. So right now, I would take Honeywell into the playoffs, knowing what he's going to be able to do.
Right.
Because to me, the idea, like the thought of the unknown with Patino is not enough for me to be like, yeah, he needs to be our guy.
Right. I mean, he's probably going to get like 1 or 2 more starts before October, so maybe he's just going to start throwing a changeup like 30% of the time out of nowhere. Like, I think that realistically could happen because the Rays are innovative and weird. They're going to do something that nobody's expecting. Kind of like how they like stopped Ryan Yarbrough from throwing curveballs in his last start. So I don't really know what's going on. I think I would agree. I think Honeywell would be the guy I would take today. But if Patino is able to just show like some kind of changeup or some kind of life in these next couple weeks, I might take Patino. Maybe as not a starter, but as like a righty specialist. Because like I said before, I don't have the numbers in front of me, but he's got like a 1-to-1 strikeout to walk rate for lefties. Like he's not, he can't really throw to lefties without a third pitch. So we'll see. Yeah, it's a weird situation for sure. But if anybody who's listening, Eric Neander, if you could just like give us some kind of like hidden cryptic message about like why you're doing this, because I really want to know, because the Rays are so smart. They are the smartest team in baseball, probably one of the smartest teams in pro sports. So there's no, if you got a burner account, DM me, please, Eric Neander, or DM at RBLR Sports, or anybody who's listening, honestly, if you have any idea or any kind of explanation, just, reply to our tweets, yell at us, DM us if you have some insight. That would be great, because I genuinely want to know. Like, I'm not being like facetious or whatever. Like, I want to understand why he's still here. Like, no offense to him, I love him a lot, but I think it might be Honeywell time. Yeah,
that's the irritating part, is just not, like, we all know baseball relatively well, and for us to not be able to figure out why he's still here is just right. the frustrating part. Like you said, I don't hate the kid. He's 21 years old. Like, he's going to do great things. I truly believe that he is, but maybe we're damaging him more than we're doing good to him at this point.
Oh, exactly. That's a good point, because you're not developing if you're just getting shelled every 5th day. And like, we haven't seen the third pitch. Like, we haven't seen any development. He's the same pitcher. I mean, based on his performances, he is performing the exact same way he was in July when he was also getting hit around. So the only thing that makes sense to me is if they're hiding that third pitch until like the week before the playoffs start. But I guess we'll see. Anything else from this week you want to mention? Any performances, anything like that before we move on to some injuries and other news?
Yeah, I think that pretty much covers aside from the injuries and stuff, that pretty much covers everything that I have. I know we didn't do the 3 starters for the playoffs yet, but
we can do that right now.
With that being said, back to my previous comment, we didn't have 3 starters start this week. So it's like to do that off this week is going to be rough if we're just basing it off this week.
Yeah, I think it's going to be pretty similar to last week, because like you said, McClanahan, he's on the shelf a little bit. He's fine though. Waka and Patino were like the only traditional starters that, well, I guess Rasmussen too, kind of, even though he's like a 4-5 inning guy.
Yeah.
Which is basically a starter length in the playoffs, because they don't really let the starters go too long anyways.
Exactly.
But I did see some tweet, I forgot who said it, but they were talking about how like the innings from, Glasnow, Snell, and Morton last postseason were the same amount of innings that the bullpen got. So we don't really need to have like some 7-8 inning start. Like, we just need guys to go like 4, maybe 5 quality innings and then let the bullpen do its thing. So I'm not concerned about the pitching staff. I just want to know what it's going to look like in October, because there are going to be some tough decisions with guys coming back from injury, guys getting back into a groove, and some guys in AAA kind of making a case for themselves. So I guess we'll go on to injuries then. Matt Whistler, I know I joked a little while ago that, his finger inflammation probably wasn't real, but I'm sorry, Matt Whistler. It looks like it was real. He's shut down for about another week or so, but it looks like he's going to be okay. He just needs a little more time to heal. He was feeling good enough to get into a game against, I think, Boston like a little over a week ago, but he came out like immediately. So he's going to be all right. He just needs a little more time. Chris Archer, I'm a little concerned about him. His season could be in jeopardy because they can't really figure out the source of his hip soreness. There is some inflammation in there, and the team doctor was unable to give like a firm, like 100% diagnosis. So he's going to see he's going to get some other opinions, and then we will figure out what's going on. But usually when they can't diagnose something immediately, it just kind of leads to like a shutdown. And if he's shut down, he won't really have enough time to get built back up for October. So we might see Archer kind of end his season, which would be really unfortunate because I really liked what we saw out of him until he was hurt. On a lighter note, though, we do have Wander Franco making a very quick recovery, a lot faster than anticipated. He could be activated as early as Monday, so 2 days from now. But I think the Rays are going to take their time. They don't need to rush him back. They're, like we said earlier, they pretty much have the playoff spot locked up. But I would like to see Franco get activated with a couple games left in the season just so he can get some at-bats, so he's ready to go into the postseason. Hopefully he's able to keep his on-base streak intact when he does get those at-bats, but I think he would prefer the team, be prepared for the playoffs than some kind of personal record. He seems like a pretty good team player.
That was what I was going to say. He seems like the kind of guy that he's not necessarily worried about having that streak continue as long as the team's winning.
Yeah, I mean, like, I would definitely, he's probably aware of the streak because, that's really impressive. But like you said, I think he's, more concerned about, winning games. And he's going to have plenty of opportunities to start a new streak and probably even have a longer one as he gets, more playing time under his belt. But one more injury that was kind of interesting that I didn't think we would talk about after, he initially went down is Cody Reed. So he went down on the IL like June 22nd, and he got some decompression surgery on his left thumb because he had weakness in his thumb. And basically he's got some, I think it was like thoracic outlet syndrome, something like that. I'm not a doctor. I'm a language arts teacher at a middle school. But basically he was supposed to be out until spring training next season, but he started his rehab earlier this week with the Florida Complex League, and he threw a scoreless inning striking out the side, and his velocity apparently looked normal, like 94, 95. So that's pretty interesting as a left-handed option, possibly working his way back. He's someone that could be included on a playoff roster because he was on the roster by the deadline. So interesting stuff there with Cody Reed. And I don't think Adam Conley Adam Conley's been good, but I don't know if he's done enough to be like the lefty that the Rays carry on their roster in the playoffs. So if Reed is healthy, he might, make a case for himself there. So it's interesting because he was supposed to be out for the season.
Yeah, my only other injury.
So a couple was that all the injuries I think I covered? I know McClanahan and Cruz are kind of like dinged up.
So my only other injury that I have that you missed was Cruz, but like you said, you didn't miss it. He's just dinged up. I think it's just rest for him at this
right
point.
Yeah, I think he's probably fine. I know, you got to keep the guy that's 41 years old fresh for October, so I'm sure they'll take their time resting him. The offense definitely doesn't look the same without him and Franco, but as long as they just, if they can just go 500 the rest of the way, that's fine with me. I'm not asking for much.
I agree 100%.
So some other news. Yeah, he's going to be all right, I think. I just want him to get like some consistent at-bats like Franco before he gets back, but I'm sure they will. The Rays they're smart. They've got a plan. Some other news. We saw Phillips get activated from the IL like early on this week, and we talked about what he did with his 3 hits, all of them home runs. Nick Anderson also got activated this week. And there was a story where he like surprised the team. So they knew that he was traveling to Detroit with the team, but he just like showed up in a minivan at the team hotel in Detroit. So that was probably pretty cool. Some good morale booster. Even though morale wasn't low, it's probably just good to see like, your teammates come back. And he's getting better. I think he needs more time. I also saw that Josh Fleming has been weirdly like really, really, really good in Durham. His velocity is up to 94, 95 right now in some shorter outings, which is interesting. So he might be another, lefty bullpen spot for the postseason, and he is postseason eligible. But, getting that velocity up to 94, 95 and having that changeup that he has with, some of the best drop in the league, I think he could be a really good option if he's able to do that consistently.
Yeah, I agree with that.
And he's been like an okay starter. The problem was his release point was kind of falling off, so the Rays, saw that red flag and sent him to Durham to fix that. So the other thing I have is I noticed it earlier in the week. I mean, I've been paying attention to it kind of like most of the season, but just how much the umpires truly do not like the Rays. I don't have the stuff from last night's game, but the umpires have taken away 13.01 runs overall from the Rays this season based on their calls. And when the Rays are batting, they are a negative 28.99 runs at the plate, which is one of the highest in baseball. The umpires just really don't like the team philosophy of trying to see a lot of pitches. So it kind of sucks. Like, the Rays are still a really good team, but if there were robo-umps, this team would be just on a whole nother level, I think.
Yeah, I think we'd be the best team in the league at that point.
I mean, like almost 29 runs like at the plate. Like, that's like 5-6 games worth of offense, maybe, like that they're losing out on because of the umpires. I mean, I know their pitching has benefited a little bit because, Zunino can frame pitches. Mejia's getting better. He's not great, but he's slowly improving. But even the 13 runs overall, like, that's like maybe a win or two that they're taking away from the Rays record, which, I mean, every team is going to go through their struggles, but the Rays are like the most persecuted team in the league. They have the lowest favorability percentage. So like when calls are like 50-50 borderline strikes, the Rays only get 38.8% of those calls, and that is the lowest in the league by like 2 or 3%. So I don't know. It seems like it's related to their approach at the plate, why they don't get their calls, but even the pitchers aren't getting calls. And Zunino is the second best framer in the league, and he's only like 0.5% off the league leader. So why do they hate us so much?
They don't like seeing us win, man.
Maybe that's it. It's crazy. I feel like even a lot of like the replay calls like go against the Rays. Like when I know the replay center in New York, so maybe that has something to do with it. It's kind of just speculation, but
you just nailed it right on the head. I didn't even think about that. You nailed it right on the head. They're Yankees fans.
It could be it, but then even the home plate umpires, like, they cycle through all of them. So like, why are the Rays not getting the calls when both of their framers, like Zunino frames at over 50%, Mejia's not good, but even he's over 44%. So why do only 38% of the calls go their way? Like, there's no way to explain that other than the umpires are bad at their jobs, I think. Right? I mean, unless there's something I'm missing. Okay, cool.
So we're never going to get an ump on the show now.
No, just burned that bridge. So no Joe West, no Jerry Meals, whoever that is. I just know Joe West and Angel Hernandez, I think, is the other guy.
And we don't want Angel Hernandez on the show.
No, it's a problem when you know the umpires' names, because we're not supposed to know their names. We're supposed to just, they're supposed to quietly do a good job, and then nobody's going to know their names, and then we move on with our lives. But when we start knowing the names, that's a problem. Because like I'm obsessed with baseball, but I'm obsessed with the numbers, not the names. I shouldn't know which umpires are good at their jobs and which are not. I mean, like, I guess the ones that are good at their jobs deserve like praise, but they gotta have like some kind of like maybe training they could go to improve, because 38% of 50-50 calls is not how that should go. That doesn't make sense.
And you would think training is probably cheaper than robot umps.
Yeah, it honestly probably is. I know the pitch tracking equipment is like upwards of like $10,000 if you want to get like a really good system. So the robo umps have to be even more expensive for sure. But I mean, I know they'll give like the better umpires like more games in the playoffs, so that'll be nice. But It just kind of sucks. It's a little annoying because the Rays do so many things right, and their approach at the plate has been great. They walk a ton, they make pitchers throw a lot of pitches, but it only helps as much as the umpires let it help them, I guess.
Yeah, true.
All right, so I know we said the playoff rotation stuff isn't going to change much, but I still want to go through it just so we're all clear. The listeners know where we're at, and we can hash some things out. But if you had to start with your 3 guys, I guess 2.5 guys really, because the third's kind of like a bulk hybrid guy. What 3 pitchers are you going to roll out in the playoffs?
So
Starters.
I guess I'm gonna stick with my, even though he's injured right now, my first one I'm gonna go Shane McClanahan.
Right.
Second, I'm gonna go Drew Rasmussen still. And then third, see, this is where I get I don't know. If Chris Archer can come back, I would put Chris Archer in still. And if not on the roster right now, I would have to go with Patino.
Yeah, I definitely agree with McClanahan being number 1. Like, he's got the 3.24 expected FIP this season. That's the best on the team among starters, like across the whole season. So I like him. For number 2, I'm going to go with the hot hand in Waka. Since August 20th, he's got that 2.74 expected FIP. That's the 8th best in all of baseball. He's tied with Charlie Morton, and he's just 0.01 ahead of Brandon Woodruff. And like I mentioned before, Blake Snell, who's been really great, he's got that 2.78 expected FIP. So Waka's been, a little pretty much the same as Snell, honestly. That 0.04 difference doesn't really mean that much. But Waka's been great, so I'm going to go with him at number 2. And then number 3, I know you said you had Rasmussen at 2. I'd take Rasmussen at 3. I know I've been, not really like hating on him, but, skeptical because of his overperformance. But honestly, the Rays just need to enjoy that as long as possible, ride it out. He's got a 1.97 ERA as a starter. We know that's like way different than his expected FIP, but doesn't matter. Just get it done in the playoffs. I don't care how it happens. Just enjoy the ride because he's been getting good results, so we'll take it.
Yeah, no, and I don't necessarily disagree with your order at all. Waka was it was between Waka and Patino for me.
I mean, if Patino, he has the highest upside, honestly, out of all the pitchers that are healthy right now, because I think Glasnow still has room to grow, even though he's been amazing. I think Patino has a higher upside than McClanahan, just because of the stuff that Patino throws, the velocity, the movement, the spin. It's all really impressive. So I think Patino, if he shows some signs of life in these next 2 weeks, I think he could easily be the number 2 for me. But for now, he's going to be, a fringe guy. If he's, on the roster for the playoffs, I hope he is, because, that would be great for his, confidence. But in terms of his development, I don't know how much that would help. So yeah, we've got our 3 playoff guys. We're going to look ahead at this next week. So anything you're looking forward to that's coming up with these games against the Tigers, Blue Jays, and then the Marlins?
Mostly I want to see how we do against Toronto. I want to see if we can kind of right the ship against them. At the same time, though, if we dropped a couple of games to them, I wouldn't be upset, because that puts them in a better position to knock the Yankees out of the playoffs.
Right.
But then again, that kind of screws us, because I don't want to see Toronto winning the wild card. But mostly I want to see kind of what we've already talked about, as far as if Patino can get his think of the proper way to say it, get his stuff in order.
Yeah, that's better than saying like get his life together or anything like that.
Yeah,
so,
exactly.
Yeah, stuff in order. That'll be the way we say that. I like it. Good euphemism. We've got those. We've got 2 games against the Tigers coming up. They're both day games, and the Rays have the best winning percentage in baseball in day games. So I don't know exactly what that is, but I think that would be, a pretty good sign that the Rays can finish strong here against Detroit. I'm excited, like you said, to see them play Toronto. They could clinch a postseason berth in that series. And hopefully, like, I want Toronto to continue to help us bury Boston and New York. Boston's pretty much out of the conversation at this point, so I guess they really don't deserve any airtime, but we'll mention them just because they're technically still in it.
We'll give them a little bit.
Yeah, but I think that I would like to see Toronto help us push them down farther, but at the same time, I don't want to play them in the wild card. So yeah, if it comes down to it, like Toronto or New York, who would you rather play in the wild card, like right now?
Oh, if we had to play them in the wild card, just a 1-game series?
I mean, I'm sorry, I guess in the wild card, yeah, something crazy happened. Like, who would you rather play in that wild card?
In a 1-game series, probably, oh God. 1-game series, I'm going to go with Toronto.
Yeah.
Because I feel like New York has more. For a 1-game series, New York could put together a better all-around group of guys to hit the field as opposed to a 7-game series. If it's a 7-game series, I would take New York. I'd play New York all day. But just a 1-game series, I would take Toronto.
Yeah, I agree. I would be the same. I would hate to, have Vlad Guerrero Jr. hit like 4 home runs in a 1-game series. I could live with that in a 7-game series, but in a 1, I don't know. It would be really tough. I don't want to play anybody in a wild card game, so hopefully the Rays just, go 500. But yeah, I would much rather play New York in like a full 7-game series, I think, just because Toronto is good. They're a good team. New York is an okay team. Boston is a terrible team, so we'll make sure we talk about that a little bit. But New York is okay. They could, I think Toronto's better, basically. And then
yeah, exactly. I agree with you.
Any predictions for the week before we wrap this up? Anything you're think we're gonna see?
Aside from my prediction from earlier that Monday Tampa locks up a playoff spot,
right?
That's really my only prediction right now. I don't want to put too many quotes out there and then become a liar.
No, you're good. I think we're going to see Yandy kind of pick it up even more this week. He's been really good in the second half with a 117 weighted runs created plus, so 17% above league average. But it really looks like he's hitting the ball much harder in recent weeks. I don't have the exact numbers on it, but he's continuing to hit the ball really hard, so I like that. And I think we're going to see Honeywell get called up for a spot start this week and a chance to be on the playoff roster. I think he's going to get a shot because he's been good in Durham, but I know they're going to want to see him against major league hitters. So I think, like you said, I think we're going to clinch. Maybe not Monday, but at some point this week. And then I think when we clinch, Honeywell is going to get a call up for a spot start. I really hope to see that.
That would be nice.
Because, I mean, we saw him as a reliever, and he was, pretty decent. He had some outings against, like, Toronto, New York, and I think Kansas City. But I want to see him as a starter. He's been getting stretched out. His velocity is down from, where it was when he was, like, the super hyped-up prospect. But it's getting a little bit better. He's, cleaning up his delivery, so hopefully he can get, almost back to normal because I really like his potential. And I think he'd be a bit of a safer pick than some of the other pitchers on the roster. So we'll see. Anybody that's listening, you can follow at RBLR Sports on social media. We've got Instagram, Twitter, Facebook. Maybe we can get like a Bumble account or something. I don't know. You can match with us somehow. We also would like you to like and subscribe to our podcast on Spotify, the iHeartRadio app. We've got, our stuff on Apple and Google Podcasts. We're on YouTube and pretty much any, major podcast platform. That would be nice if you could do that for us. It helps us out as we do like to make this content, even though we're all in 3 different places right now. I'm in Tampa still. Eureka's in Colorado somewhere. And then where'd you say, where you at, Zach?
I am sitting in my work truck.
Okay, cool. Nice.
I got called into work today, so I am currently working and doing a podcast with you guys.
Nice. I hope you're on the clock for that. You should get paid for this. That would be
100%.
But
my first paid podcast, boys.
Nice. You're way ahead of the rest of us here. I think. I don't know if we have any. Maybe we can get some sponsors in the works. So we'll see. Any final thoughts here before we close this out?
No, I just want to thank everyone for making it this far and putting up with us. We enjoy doing it, like Ben said. So it's been a blast, and basically just go Rays.
Thank you for tuning into this presentation by RBLR Sports. On your way out of the stadium, please remember to like and subscribe.